Hi guys, my name is Anna and today I'm going to be discussing Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. I will have a very brief non-spoiler review at the beginning of this video, but I really want to talk in depth about all the amazing things that happened and went down in this book. So the majority of this, what's probably going to be a really long video, is going to be a very spoilerly discussion since this is the most recent release in the Throne of Glass series. It came out like at the very beginning of this month. But if you haven't read this series yet, just jump into it because it's worth it just for this right here, trust me. So to begin my non-spoilerly review, I would say that this is a series that grows and becomes better with each book. The first novel, Throne of Glass, really is just about our main character Celaena and her personal struggles as an assassin and coming in, being saved from the slave labor camps and being able to compete in the competition to become the king's champion. And after she works as the king's champion for a certain amount of time, she'll earn her freedom. But the stakes are really risen as you learn some secrets about Celaena's past and her identity and about all these other characters, and it really becomes this epic high fantasy war against evil kind of a vibe that really gets kick-started in Heir of Fire, and that same vibe is continued in Queen of Shadows. It really has grown a lot. You can tell with each book how much the author Sarah J Maas's writing has become so much stronger and so more powerful. If you did not love Throne of Glass and you have read it, I would recommend continuing on the series till at least Heir of Fire, because once you learn about the character of Celaena and all the situations, and as it builds to have these more epic stakes, I think you will enjoy the series more. I enjoyed Throne of Glass, but it was more of a 5-star book for me. I liked it, but I didn't love it. There were some aspects of the characters that annoyed me. I just didn't feel as compelled by the world. I found some things confusing, but the past 2 books in this series have been absolute 5 stars. It's become probably my favorite book series right now is the Throne of Glass series. It is definitely worth the read. Another question that also circles around a lot about this series is when to read the novella bind-up book, The Assassin's Blade, which is behind me. I believe that the reading order that you should do is Throne of Glass, then the novella bind-up, and then the rest of the series. Because once you get to Crown of Midnight, which is the second book in the series, there starts being brought up a lot of things and references that's into that novella prequel bind-up that you won't really get, and you won't be able to appreciate how the author has woven all these different characters and plot lines together. You won't really be able to appreciate it or understand and love Celaena as a character as much as you do as you go along with the series, because you don't understand what she's been through as well. You don't know her thoughts and a lot of her past as well as you do if you get the experience of reading the Throne of Glass novellas bind-up. And really, it's not really even a novellas bind-up. It's just a prequel novel with some filler taken out. Like, it has chapter titles, sections of that are the different novellas or whatever, but really it's just like a prequel novel that's got a lot of filler taken out. I mean, that's what it is. So it's definitely worth the read. I started finding myself becoming really emotionally attached to everyone when I read The Assassin's Blade, which is the novella bind-up, and then once I got to Heir of Fire, I was like, this is my favorite series of all time, oh my god. So I believe that really actually wraps up my non-spoilerly section. This book has so much happened, and since it's so far into the series, there's really not much I can talk about without giving away too much, except for I love the direction that the story is going. I love this epic plot that's being built up. I love all of the characters that have been introduced. I think the writing is fantastic. I loved all of it. I really love this book, and I really love this series, and it's definitely worth checking out. Now I'm going to be moving on to my very spoiler-filled section of my review slash discussion of Queen of Shadows. So stay tuned if you've read it, or, I mean, you'd be warned by this point, but seriously, stick around. I have lots of thoughts on this really amazing book. So this book may have been amazing, but it also was a lot to keep up with. So I actually have some notes here that I will be looking down at a lot as I'm trying to review this, so that way this review makes sense both to you and to myself. So if you see me looking down, that's why I've got this baby here. That's a collection of all my scrambled thoughts on the awesomeness of this book. So this book starts off with a bang. We are after Arobynn. Celaena, who is going by her birth name of Aelin now, is ready to take names, and she actually decides to pretend she's still on Arobynn's side and enlist in his help to rescue her cousin, and then she reunites with Chell, and just things kind of stay in limbo for a little while they're planning to rescue Aiden until they actually rescue him. So I'm going to take this time real quick to discuss some of the characters that are first introduced in the beginning of the book. So Aelin has grown so much as a character. I'm probably going to randomly reference to her as both Aelin and Celaena, because that's just in my head, they're both equally her, you know? But I love how she's come to accept herself now and all the mistakes she's made, and I just love her as a character so much. I relate to her. I think she's the best young adult protagonist really of anything that I've read. I love the complexity of the character, how she is this kick-ass powerful person who is this warrior but has the feminine side and loves to dress up and look pretty, and yet has the intelligent side where she loves to read. She has so much depth to her, and I love her so much for it. Now Chao, on the other hand, I don't know what the hell his problem is. We went through him never being my favorite really, and I never felt that betrayed after the end of Crown of Midnight. Like, I understood his reasonings of why he did what he did to a certain extent, but in this book it's like he just becomes a completely different person and is just a douche all the time. Like, he even tells Aelin that she's a monster when they finally reunite, and that he believes that if he aids her in getting back magic to help them overthrow the evil king, that she will use her magic and just take it out on all the citizens and just kill everyone in revenge for what happened to her. And I'm like, well, of course Aelin wouldn't do that, but since when would Chao threaten her like that and be that just mean and cruel? And I know he was upset because of what happened to Dorian, but it's like he all of a sudden had this total other side to him that I don't understand why his character's personality suddenly changed so much. It didn't really make any sense to me. But this book did really just completely kill him as a character for me. Not that he actually dies, but I just don't care about him anymore. I don't care if he dies. I just don't really like him as a character. Even though he is working with the rebels now and trying to save people from the king and all this, I don't like him. I'm sorry. I've just gotten where I'm just totally over Chaol. He could really just not have any chapters that are from his point of view because I just don't like him. So after the reunions and a little bit of filler, we get to Adian's rescue, where Selena is in. She's taking names. She is saving her cousin, and she is going for it, and she is so badass. And poor Adian was beforehand, you know, wanting to die because he didn't want to be able to be used as a weapon against his cousin. But their relationship, of their sibling-like relationship, is so sweet. And I loved that they got their reunion and they got to tell one another about everything that happened. And finally, Selena has someone else that's on her side. And they both love one another and forgive one another for all their mistakes. And they're just like the cutest thing ever. I love that she finally has like this family now that she's getting to rebuild her court as she's going to take back her kingdom. I love Adian as a character. Of all the possible ships in this universe, I do not want them to be together. For one thing, they're too closely related, and it would be nice, again, for Selena to continue to have a platonic relationship with someone, because the majority of the platonic relationships that Selena has ends up turning into some kind of romantic situation. So just, they need to be a no, never, ever, ever are they gonna get together, because again, which I mean, they're not like first cousins, but still they're closely related enough where it's weird, and they just don't need to get together, because just let there be a platonic relationship, please. Speaking of relationships that used to be platonic, a little while after Aiden's rescue, Rowan shows back, and he is my precious baby. I love my little fae warrior boy who can shapeshift into a hawk. He is just the best thing ever, and he shows up back, and then suddenly though when he shows up again, it's like he and Aelin can't keep their hands off of one another. It's like they did a complete 180 from an Heir of Fire where they had this big brother little sister vibe of relationship, which they obviously don't have now, and I didn't see that. Maybe they realized more what their feelings were with their couple months spent apart, but other than that, I don't mind them being together, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't expect it, and I felt like it was a little too abrupt. I felt it was like Sarah J. Maas was like, Rowan is like my new all-time favorite male character that I've got to put him with my protagonist. And she's got her two favorite characters together now, which, hey, I'm good with. They're my two favorite characters. Fine with them being together. Although I think if I do follow any ship in this series, it's Sam and Selena, which is really depressing because Sam's dead. And he's been dead from book 1. I miss him so much from the prequel novel. That this isn't the Sam from Supernatural, so he's dead and he's staying dead. And that's really depressing if you think about it for any time at all. I did love how when Rowan shows up, he reveals this secret about Adian, where Adian's father is actually also a Fae Prince, and he was one of the members of Rowan's group, you know, and how that kind of secret behind that. I'm not quite sure, again, why his mother felt such a big need to keep a secret to everyone who his dad was, in case she was worried that the evil Fae Queen was gonna like use that against the Fae Prince guy or whatever. And of course Rowan and Adian kind of butt butt heads some, which is to be expected. But at the very end of the book, at the big showdown and everything, they're like thinking of one another as brothers and really have this total bromance going, which is awesome. But I never saw any conversation or anything that really made sense, that all of a sudden again there made sense to go from A to B, that, oh, okay, they've had this conversation, they've learned about one another, they really like one another now, you know, they feel like they're brothers, they are really their BFFs. I never felt like there was this big conversation or interaction or anything that I felt like really changed that. So that's again kind of like another disconnect that I kind of felt of, like, okay, it's like we're going from kind of butting heads and kind of not getting along, but not hating one another, just being kind of neutral, to all of a sudden we're best buddies. And I didn't understand that. Like, I mean, I guess sometimes your feelings do just kind of randomly change towards people, but still in a novel, it's nice to have that explanation of, okay, they had this conversation where they felt like they really bonded and understood one another and, you know, started getting along, you know. What I would like to mention, speaking of Aylin's romantic relationships, I'm 100% team Aylin. Whoever she wants to be with, except for Adian, I am perfectly fine. If she wants to end up with Dorian, or even if she wants to get back together with Chow, or she wants to continue being with Rowan, as long as she doesn't break my poor baby's heart, I'm fine with her being with anyone or no one at all in the end. I just want her to be happy, so I'm not really someone who's really that worked up about any of the ships. And this hell she can get together with Manon, I don't care. Just as long as my baby is happy, honestly, I don't care which oob she's with, you know? Just let her be happy, please. Can this end with everyone not being dead? Is that possible at this point for this series to end with everyone not being dead? So a little bit after Rowan's arrival, they start really getting things going to kill Arobynn, who was like the biggest, lots of bad words ever. I hate him. I'm so glad that we finally got to kill him. Although I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't actually Aylin who had the killing blow. It was Lysandra. But talk about a surprise. I was not expecting Lysandra's character or her development or her shape-shifting abilities. I think she's an amazing new addition to the cast, and that she's going to be traveling with Aylin and becoming a part of her court. I love this introduction of this character. I love how we got all this depth from her, from the little bit of her that we got to see in, again, really important, the Assassin's Blade. But I thought she was a fantastic character, and I was so happy and that she got to show up again, and that she suddenly became this really fantastic character instead of just kind of the shallow whatever girl that we saw from in the Assassin's Blade. However, I will say it almost seemed too easy how quickly that got rid of Arobynn. It was just like, okay, we'll change his will secretly and then we'll have you kill him in the nighttime and slit his throat and then pretend that like someone snuck in and managed to do it while he was sleeping. You know, it's like it was that easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I knew he wasn't going to be like the big bad in the book, which that would have been kind of a twist, wasn't it, if he had ended up being the Demon King. But I did feel like it was a little bit too easy. It was a little bit of a letdown. I do wish it had been a little bit more dramatic. I wanted a really big fight scene between him and Aylin, which is what I wanted. I wanted them to be like knocking stuff over and slamming one another through walls. That's kind of what I wanted, and I got this very anticlimactic, his throat slit while he's sleeping and he chokes on his own blood, dies. Like it wasn't as violent and as torturous as I wanted for this character. I wanted what to be done to him made what he had done to Sam pale in comparison, and unfortunately that didn't happen. I wanted the bastard tortured. I mean, that's what I wanted, and I didn't get that, but I'm so happy he's dead, and I still loved that because of that we got the introduction of Lysandra as a character. Anyway, moving on. So sometime after Arobynn's death, we get the Aelin and Manon showdown where they get to meet and they fight, and then Aelin decides to save Manon, and Manon in return lets Aelin know that, you know, Dorian is still alive in there somewhere in his possessed demon body thing that's happening, and so then they're planning on getting to rescue Dorian, and then, which is like the big finale of the book. But I'm gonna take a break to talk about Manon and the witches. And I absolutely adored Manon and the witches and their dragons in Heir of Fire. I loved their addition of the characters. I loved this more complexity of the world, getting to know about more characters outside of just really Celaena's circle. But in this book, I felt like the whole demon baby plot line just kind of took too long. I felt like it was too much just thinking about what to do and then flying around, being their bodyguard and all this kind of stuff. I didn't feel like there was enough action going with them. I felt like some of their chapters could have been taken out. That was like, I think the only other pacing problem was that I felt like there wasn't quite enough going on with the witches. I do love Manon as a character, and the reveal of Astrid, or her second, whatever her second witch's name is, her reveal of how she lost her child and how she fell in love with the human and what the grandmother did to her afterwards was so heartbreaking, and I felt like that was really the pivotal moment where Manon decided to rebel against her grandmother for the good of the other witches, and her realization of we're not born monsters, we're being made monsters, and being kind necessarily isn't this evil weakness. And I loved the end showdown with the witches, with Caitlin, which what a throwback to a character. I didn't expect to ever see her again from the first couple books, but she comes with her magical weird power that to like cause like invisible pain to people, and she comes back and she kills all of the demons, all of the warriors, and all of the demon babies and the demons and puts the poor witches that were being tortured out of their misery in the fortress military compound or whatever. And then it ends with Manon and her witches pretending to still be on the side of on the grandmother, and them just kind of biding their like time, I guess, until the right moment to strike, or like still planning their decision of how they're going to break free from the grandmother's grasp. I don't know. I also loved Manon's like growing relationship and friendship with Elaide. I also enjoyed Elaide's introduction as a character. At first I was really confused as to who she was, and then it, you know, obviously we learned. But was I the only one who thought Sorcia or Dorian's girlfriend, who was beheaded in Air Fire, who I loved, R.I.P., I'm so sorry, I wish you were still alive, but did anyone else think that her identity was actually Elaide's? Because she talked about kind of needing to be careful and hide and some things like that. So I expected her to actually be the daughter of the woman who sacrificed herself to save Aylin's life. So I'm slightly disappointed that it didn't end up being her, but I do love the introduction of Elaide as a character. I'm interested to see where she's going because it ends with her leaving, and she flees for freedom with the help of Manon from her evil, crazy uncle, and she's going to find Aylin and join her court, and that's just perfect. I did like the idea of it being Sorcia, and then Aylin comes to find out, because she never got to meet Sorcia like Dorian, now that he's out of the thing, could talk about her some, and then she could realize, oh, that's who she was, and then it would be even more heartbreaking that she died. But I still love Elaide as a character, and I'm looking forward to getting to see her finally get to meet Aylin in the next book. Also, with the witches, there just wasn't nearly enough dragon time. That was probably the main disappointment with the witch part. It wasn't even some of the filler and everything that I felt was in it. Why? We only got like a few chapters where they're actually interacting with the dragons, or the wyverns, or whatever. They're dragons. And there wasn't nearly enough time interacting with the dragons because they are awesome. They're some of the best parts of the book, and I'm really sad that we didn't get to see more of the dragons. So now after that, we go back to Aylin's gang, where stuff is going down. They are after the king. They are going to save Dorian, and everything goes down. So Aylin managed to get Dorian to come out of his possessed whatever enough to rip the possession collar off of himself, and they both go to kill and defeat the king. And then the king freaks out and acts like he's coming out of possession and says that he's actually been possessed the entire time, and that the big bad demon king has actually already been risen, and he's in the body of the Duke Parrington guy, which I didn't even remember from the first book, but he was like the sponsor guy of Kane or whatever in the first book. And if that is the big bad, as Kaia Tasek said, that's a bit of a letdown. But it would be really cool if her fan theory that was incorrect and it was actually Dorian's younger brother. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't necessarily believe what he said though, so I think there's a lot of possibilities of what he said was true and wasn't true. But the end scene where they managed to fight together, first they're fighting one another, but then where they join together once he's not possessed anymore, and to take down the king, it was so satisfying. It was so action-packed. I loved it. I love that we finally got to see Dorian again, and poor Dorian, the poor baby. You don't blame yourself for what you did while you were possessed. You and the Winchester brothers gotta go have therapy together. But the showdown at the end was so amazing. Probably the best part out of the entire book was the big end finale of it. It was wonderful. It wrapped it up perfectly. It wrapped up all the dangling plot lines while leaving enough for the other books. It didn't necessarily end in a cliffhanger, but you're still really, really rolling in that next book. And I just loved everything. I love Lysandra shape-shifting and saving Rowan and Aedian's asses when they get set up by the Lorcan whatever guy. And I'm totally iffy on Lorcan. I don't really like him. I don't know if he's going to end up being a part of them or not. I don't know how Lorcan's going to continue going, how he's evolved, if he's actually evil and he wants the word keys to do something evil, or if he is doing what he's saying and he wants to get rid of them so that way the evil crazy Fae Queen that he's blood tied to or whatever won't use him to destroy the world. I don't know about Lorcan. He's just kind of a meh character right now. We'll see where he goes. Probably gonna end up being evil, in my opinion. Oh, and another thing, when we thought that Chell was dead, which I don't really think it was dead, during that brief section. I felt like it would have had a bigger impact of being the big showdown where they kill the king. Hello! I felt like it would have been have more impact if T'Challa had actually died, and especially since his character had become so unlikable throughout this book, in my opinion, it would have had a better impact for him to die. And if we needed anyone to like take the sacrificial lamb, you have to die for this to have an impact thing, I want it to be T'Challa. But I guess he's paralyzed now, so that's kind of a big deal. But I really don't want to have to deal with lots of chapters about him dealing with that in the next book and trying to go to the city of healers or whatever to try and get his legs to work again. Like, I'm not that interested in his character. But I love the ending and how everyone has been reunited with one another, and how Aelin and her court are going to Terrasen to rebuild her kingdom and prepare for the war that's coming against all the demons, and Dorian is rebuilding his kingdom because he is exactly what that kingdom needs. He is so kind. He's going to be the perfect ruler once he gets some therapy to deal with the whole being possessed by a demon because of my evil dad thing that he needs to have happen. But I feel like everything wrapped up perfectly. I do hate that we just got Dorian reunited with everyone and now everyone's leaving, and I'm like, but you're leaving him here. He just got out of being possessed, and suddenly now not only has he got a kingdom to manage, but he's got to deal with that, and he's alone now. So either they're going to have to introduce some new character that he's going to be friends with, or maybe Elaine on her journey is going to have to pass through the kingdom and she's going to meet up with Dorian. I don't know. But I guess that wraps up my thoughts. I'm sorry if at some points my review got kind of chaotic, but my thoughts are chaotic because there was so much that was happening in this book. But overall, it's a fantastic book. I really hope you guys loved it as much as I did, because if not, you're missing out on a part of life that you need. You need the experience of reading and loving this book. Seriously. But I seriously think that wraps up all my thoughts. I loved this book overall. I only had just the tiniest nitpicky details from a critical view. Just from a pure enjoyment factor, I loved it 5 stars. Flawless. Perfect. From a critical point of view, they were like, the one or two things with the pacing and the dislike of some of the difference of Chael's character, and some of I felt like they didn't connect the dots between some sudden shifts in characters and some things like that. But again, overall, fantastic. I love it so much. I cannot wait till the next one, which comes out in like, what, a year from now? A year and a half? I'm total book hangover, man. I'm not going to be able to read anything for months because of this book. It was fantastic. I will have another video up soon at some point, so bye guys.